All right, 7th graders, today's date is March 20th, so it's the 20th of March, 2023. Talking about naming polynomials, our new unit. This entire unit is about polynomials, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and do we get to dividing? I forgot. Maybe. All right. So first, let's talk about some vocab. I want to talk about what it means to do degree. Degree is a word that means power, or it means the biggest power. So if I had to write my own definition, I would say biggest variable power. Let me give you an example. What if I gave you something that looks like this? 7x squared minus 8x cubed plus x minus 1. You have your Chromebook.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Giving the appropriate time to write notes. You guys are writing notes as well on YouTube. All right. From here, notice that I'm going to use a bunch of vocabulary as well. While I'm mainly trying to describe degree here, I'm going to talk about all the vocab that we might have forgotten or might not have been taught. So every time that I have a minus or a plus sign, that kind of cuts a chunk. That's one chunk, that's another chunk, that's another chunk, that's another chunk. There's a total of 4 chunks, and instead of using the word chunk here, I'm going to be calling this thing term. There's a term right here, a term right there. These are all called terms. A polynomial, by the way, describes anything. It has variables in it, it has numbers in it, like 1, the number 1 that you learn in kindergarten is a polynomial, technically. Everything is kind of a polynomial. A polynomial can be inside of an equation. This is a polynomial. It's a polynomial with 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. I want to look for this guy, the degree, the biggest variable power. So this variable has a power of 2, this variable has a power of 3, this variable has a power of what? 1, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and label that. Usually on a quiz test or any sort of assessment, I'm not going to give it to you. You should always know that that's a 1. And this doesn't have a variable, so you don't have to worry about that one. But technically, I'll go ahead, I should really have another color, but technically, this is an x to the power of 0, and anything to the power of 0, is it 0, 1, 0, 1, hold up? Anything? It is 1, yeah. So x to the power of 0 goes to 1, which means the degree of this term is 2. The degree of this term is 3. The degree of this term is 1, and the degree of this term is actually 0. 1 is a degree 0 term. Okay, if I'm talking about the polynomial, this entire thing in general, I say, okay, this entire polynomial, the biggest degree is that one, so this is a degree 3 polynomial. I can spell polynomial. Because that was the biggest power. Okay, what if I were to cover that term? What would the degree of the polynomial be then, Evan? Yeah, why?
Because the next biggest variable power is 2.
Exactly, that's the next biggest one, so it would be a degree 2 polynomial. There it is. How you guys feeling about the word degree? Fist of 5. 5, 3, 5. Okay. I should also use some other terminology as well. What else do we need to know? It would be nice to review some old things. Do you remember what this thing just in front of the x squared is called? In front of any variable? What is a number in front of a variable called? Yeah, he remembers. So label it. This 7 right here is called a coefficient. Trying to think of other terminology that we've learned. That's good enough for now. All right. I'm going to make a table of the names. Ready, set, making a table. The first table is going to be talking about degree. The next term, or the next table is going to be talking about terms, and you're going to put those together. Because the names is always going to be degree and the number of terms. Every single time that you name a polynomial, you'll always have two things you need to say. You need to say something about the degree and something about the number of terms, usually in that order. You can say it backwards, it's still technically correct, but it just sounds awkward. All right, so let's do the degree table. For the degree, I'm gonna go ahead and make it, I think it can fit down here. So I'm gonna say degree, and I'm gonna make terms, number of terms. I'm gonna try to really squeeze this in here. In fact, I should really put, I'm realizing how I can do this table better. I should have degree over here and then the name, number of terms, and then the name. I hope that you guys still have room for that. For Valentina, you can practice dragging this a little bit to the left. I want this to be on the left. Degree, name, and I think we have enough room where I can even put an example. So there's going to be 3 columns there. And then this one is going to be number of terms, the name, and then an example. I'll let you guys get that set up. My bad, I should have thought about that earlier.
You take 4 seconds? Are you serious? Bro, what is this? This is me?
I'm gonna get some water.
Billy, what is this? Whoa, you get it wrong, that's Coca-Cola. What shoe brand is this from? I fucking sauce. I'm gonna play.
I mean, I don't know. How do you have 2.15 times 8.3 or 8.3? Where's that number? You should have 2.5 times 8.3 somewhere. Oh, you moved the decimal place to the most. Okay, that'll work. That feels wrong. Yeah, I think you're moving that. Check that power. Check that power. I'm just telling you right now, that can't be correct. It's too far away from the add those two together. You should have -1 now. All right, how are our tables looking? Oh yeah, zooming in, this is looking nice. I'll give you guys another 30 seconds to finish your tables.
Why you hitting somebody wrong?
Come on. Robot, right? There's no thought. What are you gonna do with the powers? What's your first step? This number is smaller than this number. It's bigger. Up to 0. Exactly. So this number got. Well, you want it in scientific notation. Scientific notation means you can't have a 6, 3, and then the decimal. Decimal has to go in after that first number. Hold on, I'm talking about it. You can flip that bottom one too. All right, our tables look good. Let's continue. So, what if the highest degree of a polynomial is 0? 0. What would be an example of that? Can you guys think of something that I talked about up here where the degree was 0? I did say it before. When you learn about the number 1, 2, Those are degree 0 polynomials. So here's an example. 7. 7 is a degree 0 because technically that 7 is 7x to the power of 0, and anything in the power of 0, you guys will all hold up 1, and then you cross it off and it goes back to 7. That's a degree 0 term. That has a name. It's called a constant.
I think that should be.
Which makes intuitive sense. You have things that are constant and things that are not constant, that change. Things that change are variable. Literally, the name variables means they change. The number 1 doesn't change, it stays 1 no matter what you do to x. So constant. So far, so good. What if it's a degree 1? We've been studying these quite a bit. Sorry, Mark, it's gonna be a while. If it's a degree 1, that means I'm gonna have something like this. 7x to the power of 1, which means I don't write anything. So you can see how the progression is happening here. So over here, these are called linear. We've been studying how to graph linear functions, and this word you can see out front, the first 4 letters make the word line. We've been studying lines. So I'll just underline that if it helps you remember this, because you're gonna have to memorize all of these names and what they go with. That's what our blue kit is all about today. Okay? Degree 2 is gonna be called, and this one is weird. It's the one that confuses students more than anything else on this lesson. It's right here. Pay attention more to this than you can in anything else. Here we go. Quadratic. So if I had 7x squared plus 4x minus 1, this is a quadratic because the highest degree was a 2. You can make up your own example. In fact, you should try to make your own example. I'm gonna go ahead and, we have breakfast here in like 2 minutes, so I'll have to stop the recording. This is difficult because the word quad, you think of like a quad that you ride that has 4 wheels. So you think quadratic goes with 4. That's not true, and because I'll give you the history. When we were dealing with quadratics, we would do these things that had rectangles. You'd say, oh, I have something that is x plus 1 and something that is x minus 2, and I get x squared plus x minus 2x minus 2, and I have a quadratic because this was made by a rectangle. A rectangle is like a quadrilateral. That's where the name comes from, but it means, it just feels wrong to think of it in terms of the degree. So just be really careful with the word quadratic. Let's get through all of this table and then we'll come back to that one in a sec. 3, cubic. Which makes sense because you're in the 3rd dimension, you're now out of the plane, you're a cube. Cubic, give yourself an example, 2x to the power of 3. Something to the power of 3 is the highest degree. We have 2 more. 4 and 5 are gonna be the last ones that you need to know for this class. Yeah, sorry, Evan, we're about to head to breakfast.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay. Number 4. So if I have something like 8x to the power of 4, that would be an example. For degree 5, that would be something like 19x to the power of 5. Make up your own examples if you can. If you want to copy mine, that's uncreative, unimaginative. 4 is called quartic. All right, 7th graders, it is time to head to breakfast. 8th graders, I'm gonna hold you for 2 more minutes. And then degree 5, quintic. Yeah, I just want to finish up the video so I don't have to cut it in half. I'm gonna hold you for like 2 extra minutes. I'll give you 2 extra minutes for breakfast. I'm seeing that we're still writing. I don't want to move too fast, but I want to make sure that we're still there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the 3 that you need to know, and then as soon as you finish, you can head to breakfast. Ready, set, number of terms. If I have only 1 term, 2 terms, or 3 terms, those are the ones that you need to know. So in this case, I had 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm only going to give you up to 3 terms, 3 segments. If there's only 1 term, that's called a monomial. An example of that would be 7x. 7x is a monomial because there's just 1 term, 1 chunk. And again, if you don't know your root words, M-O-N-O, mono means 1. Mono, 1. All right. Anyone want to take a guess for the next one? Binomial. That just means you have two terms. So if I had like 7x plus 1, now there's two terms there. And then 3. That's it. Trinomial, yeah. And then we'll say 2x squared plus 8x minus 1. That's all the naming in a nutshell. And I know, last thing. I just realized, sorry. Squeeze in one more example. I want you to name this. 4x to the power of 3 minus 8. How would I name that? First of all, what degree is it?
3.
So I'm gonna write down cubic. Okay, and then I do the degree and the number of terms. How many terms do I have? 2. So I call it a cubic binomial. Every single polynomial that I give you is, well, I'm gonna give you up to 3 terms and up to the 5th power. You're always gonna have 2 names. This one, for example, is a cubic binomial. Fist of 5 real quick. 4 or 5-ish, 4 or 5, yeah. All right, cool, thanks guys, let's go to breakfast.